Time for the lighter side of information technology. It's just a chance to unload, share some grievances, and get some learnings out of those grievances. So, yeah, we're going to have some fun. You're going to hear some beeps, but hey, it's something that we can all relate to, not just in IT, but in life in general, though it is slanted toward IT. David Wheat from alt-cio will be my partner in crime for this. Oh, and before we jump into it, here's the stats from the last video. 76% of you that watched are not subscribers. What are you doing? Click that subscribe button. You won't regret it. Or are you chicken?
That's it, isn't it? Nothing but a little chicken.
So what do you say? Let's get started. What you mentioned, like going back to your first episode, right? So I've done that a couple times, and I'm almost like you can tell, right? It's like my first one's like it kind of stiff, and it's like
Right.
you feel like there's an entire audience in front of you, and and then it's just amazing as you start churning. It just
Yeah. And you got to leave that stuff behind. You just got to move on, right? Like we'll finish recording. I'll go to bed. I'll wake up the next morning and I'll think of an awesome thing I could have said, you know,
oh
and you just
well.
gotta, roll. Like,
Yeah, but I am guilty of, okay, what shirt was I wearing? How fresh was the haircut? I'm going, okay, I'm going to record something and I'm going to embed that shit. Yeah. So I've done that.
by the way, I have a continuity tracker that puts my shirt, the hat I was wearing so that I don't like wear the same shirt on multiple episodes. So I'm a nerd.
Yeah, no, but you're always rocking the different hat.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to see this, Tony. Like that's the truth. Like, so
Whoa.
I don't want to see it. Nobody wants to see it.
And you're privy to the whole ghosting phase now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been absolutely frustrating for us. And I don't know if it's a generational thing, if it's just still this post-COVID craze, but we are struggling.
The worst ghosting I ever had, I was between jobs. This is about 5 or 6 years ago. I interviewed 3 times for a total of 6 hours over the span of 2 months with a company, and then they ghosted me. And the
They
people who
ghosted
ghosted
you.
Yeah, I was the candidate.
Whoa.
And the head of HR and the CEO, who I'd talked to multiple times, were all 45 plus, and they just and I wrote them the polite, "Hey, what?" Zilch, 0.
Just
So I
checking
think
in. How's it
I'm not sure
going?
it's generational. Like I've seen it from all ages. That's one anecdotal example. I just think we're becoming an inconsiderate group of people. I don't know. Like, hey, just tell me no. I can take it, right? Just like,
Yeah, we're big
yeah, we
boys.
didn't. Yeah.
You don't have to helicopter parent me on this. Just tell it
No,
to me
like,
straight. It's pretty
yeah.
easy. Yeah. And what's up with the personal appearance changes? Or am I being the old man in the room? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like you
Yeah.
get
Tell me
different color.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
just be your therapist. Tell me about it, Tony. Like, what's going on?
Well, I just see, I see these unkept beards and I wonder why. I see different colored hair. I think the goal in life is to make sure at least 80% of your body is tattooed, pierced, pick your other scarring that takes place.
I do live in Colorado where, every third hair is a different color, head of hair is a different color. And the per capita tattooing is higher than average, and the per capita piercing is higher than average. All the stereotypes are true, except for me. I've had some IT staff report to me with, some level of funkiness. And if they're great at what they were doing, it just melted all my concerns about, those things. So it's not that big of, and I'm like not a, there's not a dot of ink on my body. Not that anyone cares about that on this podcast, Tony. I don't want
Yeah.
anyone to image that. Just erase that from your minds, everybody.
Well, I always give my kids some shit because I think one of them, I think, does have a purposeful approach to facial grooming. The other one, I feel like, is just being lazy. You just want to lift up the chin and go, okay, you're saying this is what you want to do, but that growth keeps going all the way down.
I'll leave you with this final question. If we were to pull out the old photo of 19-year-old Tony Darden, would there be any like was he doing something generational at the time? Or did you have like the super wide bell bottoms at any point? Or that's probably too soon, but like,
I had this out of control Brillo pad curly hair
uh-huh.
with a ducktail in the back,
Yeah,
which I thought was cool, and
exactly.
mustache that just went a little bit too far over the edge and was a little too thin. So I had this very, uh, yeah, very Magnum PI
Of course. Yeah.
look to it.
Nice.
Yeah,
And see, and look where you are today. See, Tony, that'll be
yeah,
$150 for your therapy session.
yes. You 180 me, Dave. Thank you for that. All right, so let's move off the gen and talk about some other things that just tend to irk you.
Finding out about the significant project that's 4.5 months into it and has an IT component, but you found out about it at the water cooler in the hallway on your way to the bathroom because you overheard a conversation. You weren't even invited to that conversation. So I have a big soapbox about a seat at the table. Like, when in doubt, invite IT to the table.
Yeah, baby.
I'll give you a quick story. It's not a real story, but hypothetically, a facility like, hey, we're going to build a new building, like a big distribution center or manufacturing plant or whatever. And they always lock the budget in. And then you find out about it 3 months later and you're like, hey, I'm going to need some stuff. And then you're like 90,000 or 175,000 worth of cabling and server racks and room. And oh, by the way, you didn't make me a room. So you're going to have to tear down this wall. And suddenly you're the bad guy for some reason because you wrecked their project plan and their budget. And that's not what the problem is. Big number, irk number one.
It is, and I'll expand on that number one because it's been a theme throughout my channel. And as how do you get that seat at the table? I mean, it's baked in the cake that you have someone from the commercial side and sales,
Yeah,
and of
of
course on
course.
finance and operations. Yet IT still to this day, I won't say for all because you do have some progressive, forward thinking companies out there, but for the most part, it's like, look, hey, when we need you, we'll call you. But until that time, you just sit back there in the corner and we'll bring work to you as needed. That can be a frustration for the very reasons you said, right? Because I just went through this with a recent acquisition. There was an over 200K expense, capex expense needed to bring them up to a security standard that we deploy throughout all our locations. But this wasn't talked about beforehand. It came to after. I didn't quite get the bad guy moniker, but it's like, man, is this not an eye-opening moment how IT should be represented top to bottom every time in every company?
Yeah, and so we should say, hey, since you clearly don't know when to engage IT and when not to, just throw us in, and we'll say, you know what, you don't need me for this thing. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I'll sign the NDA. You can trust me.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
I found out about the meeting in a water cooler, by the way. So you have a leak, but it wasn't us. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. What about you want a tag team? Like, you got an irksome thing, and we can just riff on that, or you want me to
Well,
keep
all right.
going? Or
So here's a quick one, but I tell all my bosses over time, if you ever require me to support or add voice activated prompts to our call center or to the auto attendant for this company, I resign.
oh,
That
really?
is I go from 0 to 350,000 degrees anytime I'm on the phone and they're trying to get you to voice prompt your way through. I mean, I just sit there and I just spam this here, and it just drives me crazy. I have no patience for it.
Just jotting that down so that I don't forget that about you. That like this is your
Oh,
nuclear. Yeah, first of all, if you're at a company that's big enough to have to choose, like, is it are you having a problem with your ERP? Do you need a password reset? I don't want to work for a company that big anyway. I want to work for mid to smaller anyway. Um, but they just make people frustrated. Like you said, they just want to get to someone. And if you do have a phone channel, most of the company I was worked at didn't have a phone channel. We're just like, make a ticket, and we'll call you back. How do you feel about that?
make a ticket. We'll get back to you. I tell you, I would do just about anything else other than have to go through voice prompts. Have you heard of Amazon? It's an online shopping
It's the big river
place.
in South America. Yeah, I've heard about.
Well, that's true. But this one, I mean, you can order things
Oh,
on. Yeah. Okay.
Like the
No,
Sears
I
catalog?
yeah, yeah. However, if you need to get a hold of someone,
There's not a human being with a phone.
no,
All
no,
online. Yeah,
no,
chat.
you can't. You can reply back to an order or a challenge you had with an order, but you get predetermined responses. You just don't get to free form it. In some cases you do, but when there's an actual problem, like so they sub out their delivery folks. This third party service we use, I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania. You're not allowed to go up driveways. Now I have a 550-foot driveway that snakes up through the woods. If it's raining,
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. Um, if it's raining, what do you know? They couldn't get up the driveway. It was blocked. There was some road closure that would prevent them to making the trek, but trying to get a hold of someone to make that complaint, impossible.
All right, so let's do it. Let's do a litmus test. You've got can't contact Amazon, no how, no way. What if they added a phone number, but it had voice prompts? How would you feel?
I would accept the inclement weather.
All right, I just wanted to see how serious you were, and you are
Yeah.
resignation serious.
I am resignation serious. You know,
Good to know.
the other thing that is always interesting and fun is, and we've been exposed to this, right? But help desk, getting the right information from our customers, our employees, to get them the help they need. And maybe it's me. I don't. I think it's just because I'm not experienced enough to connect the dots to understand the lingo. But we get an awful lot that just say help with
Exclamation point.
correct, and three exclamation points means
That means
different than
urgent. Yeah,
five. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Eh,
Serious.
yeah, not getting back to them in time or requesting a different or requesting more information tends to cause some consternation. So I have to have a full-throated apology for not understanding how to interpret that subject line. But have you cracked the code? I think I'm just might not be experienced enough.
Yeah, you seem a little young. You seem like you're
Yeah.
yeah, I'll give you some sage advice and some more experience, but no, obviously tongue in cheek. When you open up the help ticket, you're like, okay, let's see what this is about. It'll say, I can't get in, period. Like, not I can't get into X system versus Y system or it's email. We're a service organization, Tony, so we have to put on our good service faces and swallow a lot and smiles everybody, and say, but my brain says, okay, I'll play your little game. Like, I'll send you a reply. We trained our team not to be snarky. That doesn't get anybody anywhere. Um, so that's hard sometimes because at the end of the day, when you've seen 4 or 5 of those in a day and people aren't helping you help them.
Help me help you. Help me help you.
Let's talk about how Tony and David make a ticket for whatever. If you could get through Amazon, you're like, here's the screenshot. I use Snagit to point an arrow to the field that's got the error.
That's right.
I've listed all the steps I've already tried. Yes, I've cleared my cookies and rebooted twice so that they can start at a run, right? They can start at a run at your problem. And maybe we know to do that because we've seen so many wrong ones. But I guess most users haven't had that experience.
Well, and again, chalk it up to an experience. But so I tried to respond back in the same language, the same tone, because I feel like we would connect better. So when they send help with 5 exclamation points, I just reply back, lamp,
I love lamp. I love lamp.
send.
Because you've picked up on the fact that we're doing list 4-letter words, and then they have to reply with another 4-letter word, and the first person that can't do a 4-letter word loses. I think that's what you're doing.
I am, and then they say, "Well, can you bring someone over?" Oh, yes, I can. Well, who? The man, the guy with the head and 2 arms.
I know that all of this happens only inside your skull and not on the actual keyboard, which is really good, Tony. I appreciate that
Yeah,
you keep this dark fantasy up here and
yeah,
enjoy it for a moment, and then you go to the keyboard and you're the consummate service professional. I know
yeah.
you are.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. Don't try this at home. Yeah. The other move I like is when they CC a higher up.
Love that's a favorite.
Yes, because that's supposed to rocket fuel you to a resolution in a much more timely manner.
Especially if it's the first ticket. You haven't,
Oh, on the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one, that's
Yeah.
nuclear. Then we're
Yeah.
gonna have a problem because you haven't even given me a chance now, when when the executive team just speed dials me, the VP or director or CIO of the company IT, for some low-level support request like resetting their password. I swear this is true, Tony. I'm not lying. 80% of the time that happened, I was on vacation with my wife and had to pull over while we were somewhere beautiful. And I am telling
We
you,
were somewhere beautiful.
yeah, there was not good understanding on why I took that call. And I probably shouldn't have enabled those calls. But I never know if it's like, hey, we sold the company. Can you get on a plane and get back here right away? Or I don't know how to connect to VPN to reset my password. I'm the most senior / overpaid help desk agent in the world for that brief period of time. It can be a little bit frustrating sometimes.
I've had that happen in an actual meeting, where we have leaders around the table, owners around the table, and something goes sideways. Whoop. It's muscle memory, right? You're the IT
Yeah,
guy. So
yeah, exactly.
if the power goes out or the HVAC system goes sideways, I'm sure the senior ops guy in a room is we're looking, hey, what are we gonna do, right? Are they expecting the ops guy in the room to bring a ladder in and take the vent cover off? No. And what happened to me was audio in a group conference call, and everybody's looking at me. What are we gonna do about this? This is the third time it's happened this week. And you get through the problem. In that particular case, it was a bad switch port, but yeah, I hear you, sir. So what you do, you go to the CFO and say, hey, I'd love for you. I have a request. I want you to do my taxes for me.
You just read my mind. I was gonna say that. I was gonna walk in with my 1040 and my W-2s and say, I'll be back in an hour if you could just do my taxes. Like,
Yeah, I like how you said it better. Yeah, yeah. Since we're picking on C-suite level folks, sorry everyone, but
you're great, we love you, but here's some things you could do to make our relationship better.
yes, yes. This is strengthening advice. This is tough love.
Yeah.
And please quit having us arbitrarily assign dates to very complex software, IT, whatever related projects. It's a fallacy. It's a fantasy. I'm sure you can find examples somewhere, but I guarantee you they come with extreme simplicity behind it. And you probably, over your long careers, have never experienced on time, on budget projects of this complexity. Now, I'm talking about overhauling of your systems, of ERP or CRM. Not going to happen, never going to happen. I'm happy to play the game of I take the time it's going to take and multiply it by 3 and taking the budget and multiplying it by 3. We can play that game, but I'd much rather have a real conversation and do it appropriately.
One of the worst projects I was ever on was probably a team of 150 IT professionals, about a 7 or $8 billion company, huge revamp, like you said. And the way that so the director level and the skilled people, the people like me and you and people who know what they're doing and managing their team said, we think we need X. We're already a year into the project, and they're like, what do you need? We think we need X. And the CFO would go into his room with a couple of trusted advisors, none of whom worked in IT proper, and they would emerge like they had elected the Pope with a number. And the number was always like 90 days. We'd say we need 6 months. He'd say you have 60 days, and that project was in many ways a failure. Did it cripple the company? No. Did they lose some key information for about a year and a half? Yes. Did they have to hire 25 temps for over 2 years? Yes. So my point, not to get into the weeds on that, it was like the old arbitrary date where you don't trust your professionals who know how long things take, and instead you're just throwing a dart at a board. I've never seen it work successfully and lead to better outcomes.
I mean, this goes back years, years. I was one of the top candidates. I know that surprises you, David,
It
that I was
does.
a top
It
candidate.
surprised me that you didn't say the top candidate.
Well, I'm humble. But anyway, and through a colleague that I knew at the company many times later ends up telling me what soured the CIO at the time, which I guess shame on him for this very topic, was my responses back on approaches to projects with complexities. And he came to me with, well, we just got bought out PE, and we have a very tight window to get this ERP system, implemented. And it wasn't an upgrade. This was a true rip and replace. And it had something similar. It was like 90 days, but 400 end users. It was going to also, part of the project was introducing a new MES. And when I said, well, what's our budget and how many resources? And he told me, I was like, there's no possible way. You need to at least double your well, we don't have that, and we just got to get it done. Are you telling me you're not my guy? I am being your guy, telling you what you need, right?
Yes, I am your guy. I'm the guy that's going to tell you the truth when you say silly things like you just said. Now, if saying silly things like you just said makes me not your guy, I completely understand.
Exactly. And
If
I
I
come
just
to
called you
find out
silly and I'm out, yeah,
it
yeah,
ended up being 3 years. So 90 days
of
went to
course,
3 years. Yes, of
of
course,
course, of
exactly. Yeah.
course it did.
But you know what? You know what the lesson, you always try to have lessons learned is, okay, keep having that type of dialogue. Don't, because what are you going to do? Are you going to play the game and believe in a falsehood and then not deliver? How do you think that's going to go?
Yeah, if you play the game, the danger is that it looks like you said we could all along and you failed.
Correct. You're obviously a bad leader, a bad planner, because
Yeah, so you've got to stand up and say your piece, and with conviction. If you're wrong, say you're wrong, and later, if you're right, don't rub it in their face. But you can't just go along, or else it'll be your fault because you said they could.
and they were doing, and this was an SAP implementation,
Oh, those
which
are easy. Those
li-
are
simple. I mean, you
yeah.
can do those in your sleep, right? I mean,
In fact, literally, it's preferred if you do them in your sleep.
yes, yes. I've never heard of it going south when you take that correct approach. Yeah,
Exactly.
but that was the other thing in my head. In hindsight, I'm like, SAP. This is a single building, four walls. You only have 400 employees, um, and you're gonna. And this wasn't. I mean, this was the granddaddy SAP. This wasn't SAP light. And it was the PE firm that made this decision, which consultant ABC or Gartner, that's not in that one quadrant, you're ERP,
You know how you've got your like nuclear voice automation system.
Yeah.
If I'm ever at a company and say, "Hey, David, we've decided to go to SAP," because by the way, I've done SAP. I've been there and done that. I did SAP for the Fortune 1 company in the world at the time, ExxonMobil, way back in the day. So I know I've been there, kicked the tires. If someone, that's why I love the mid-market space because I can
Yeah.
avoid SAP for the rest of my
And so
career.
well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can explain it away. You can try to explain it away. It's like, well, and I don't disagree with the thought process. As you get into it, there's new discoveries. Those discoveries are worth having a conversation about, and most of the time, it increases the scope and cost. And if we're all on the same page with that, that's reasonable to me.
Do you think that the CIO that passed on you, even though you're obviously one of the top, if not the top candidate, do you ever
Well,
think
thank you for that
do you
latter
think
part. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you think that he ever remembered that conversation ever, or do those kinds of people just shut it off and don't?
Well, they remember it, but far be it for them to admit it out loud. Maybe in their sleep.
I'm getting the sense you're just a guy that would like a thank you once in a while, and I'm sorry once in a while. I think that makes you pretty much a human being.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A top tier. I mean, a top tier human being. I don't want to, but a
Well,
human being nonetheless.
the top tier, right? Is that?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is
Right.
twice now.
Yeah.
Today.
I'm not getting invited back to the podcast, am I?
Well, we'll see about that, won't we? We shall see about that. Yes, we will. We will see about that.
Thanks for having fun with us today. Always great to have conversations about the things that frustrate us in our day to day and the powerful learnings that come out of it. Even if it's just to lower the temperature, it's worth having that conversation. Thanks again. Until next time. David, thanks for joining in the. How do you, sorry, I guess I should have got this out of the way. How do you, so your last name is Wahet?
No, it's just like the grain that grows in the field and is a form of bread. So but the W makes a weird whooshing sound if you say it right. So it's wheat.
Oh. The speed at which iOS devices say, fuck it, I'm leaving this earth is 40 miles an hour.
Scientific. They've done studies.
It wasn't your typical drop case scenario. And it took some Q&A. It took a little bit of forensics.
I was going to say some forensic CSI type lab experiments to see what would cause a dent this size, this deep, at this angle.
In the moment testing where I can drop my device repeatedly and I just can't seem to replicate the damage. We got there. It was the admittance of leaving the device on the top of the car
Oh,
while putting something into the back seat and then taking off. And then there was the whoops moment.
now usually I prefer that move for my wallet. I like to find my credit cards and money strewn 2 blocks away from my house. That's my patented move, not phone ever.
And that's such a panic moment, isn't it? Like, I mean, you think about like just when you just that brief second you put your hands behind you and you're like, oh,